What causes Linux kernel panics and how to fix them? Imagine your computer suddenly stops working, and all you see is a message full of technical details. That's a Linux kernel panic, and it's like the system's way of saying something went very wrong. The core of the operating system, called the Linux kernel, is responsible for managing hardware and system resources. When it encounters a critical error it cannot fix, it halts everything to prevent damage or data loss. Think of it as the system's emergency stop button. Kernel panics happen for several reasons. Hardware failures are a common cause. Faulty RAM or a damaged CPU can cause unpredictable behavior that leads to a panic. If your hard drive has bad sectors or corrupted data, the kernel might struggle to access important files, causing it to crash. Unsupported or malfunctioning hardware devices can also create conflicts, especially if drivers are not compatible or properly installed. Sometimes, loose connections or improper hardware setup can trigger these issues too. Software problems are another big factor. Bugs in the kernel code or in kernel modules can cause crashes. Faulty device drivers that don't work well with the kernel can disrupt system operations. Critical system files, like the initial RAM file system, which helps the system start up, might be corrupted or missing. If recent updates or patches introduced bugs, they could also lead to a panic. Malware infections targeting system components can cause similar issues. File system and boot problems are also common culprits. If the initramfs or initted files, which help initialize the system during startup, become corrupted, the kernel might fail to boot properly. Moving the root file system without updating the initramfs can confuse the kernel, leading to a panic. If the kernel cannot find or start the init process, the system cannot proceed. Fixing a Linux kernel panic starts with understanding what caused it. First, look at the error message and logs. These often point to the specific problem, like a faulty driver or hardware component. Using diagnostic tools, you can test RAM and hard drives for faults. Boot into rescue mode or a recovery environment if the system won't start normally. This lets you access files and run repair tools without triggering the panic. Next, repair or rebuild critical files like the initramfs. Make sure it matches your current kernel version. Verify that all kernel modules and drivers are compatible. If system files are corrupted, restoring from backups can help. Sometimes, reinstalling or updating the kernel to a stable version is the best move. Avoid installing untested patches or modules that might cause instability. Hardware troubleshooting is also essential. Reseat or replace faulty RAM or other hardware parts. Disconnect recently added hardware to see if that solves the problem. Regularly updating your system with stable kernel versions helps prevent issues. Testing new modules or patches in a controlled environment before deploying them can save a lot of headaches. Always keep backups of important files and configurations so you can restore quickly if needed. Understanding what causes Linux kernel panics helps you keep your system running smoothly. Unlike Windows systems that show a blue screen, Linux provides detailed error messages that can guide you to the root of the problem. Knowing how to interpret these messages and take action can save you time and prevent data loss. Keeping your hardware in good shape, updating your system regularly, and being cautious with new updates are key steps to avoiding these sudden crashes.